All right, tonight on Get Good, we will be discussing patch 3.45, the new anima steps, and whatever joyous new things Square Enix decides to throw at us at this patch, and also the seasonal event, which I thought was absolutely amazing. I am your host, Commander Kane, and my co host, Bellator Lucis, is here as well.
Hey
And
everybody.
welcome to tonight's show.
Yeah, thank you for the intro, Kane. Tonight, we're going to be going into something that I think I've been kind of hounding Kane on for a while, particularly in order to make sure that he's prepared for this patch, because 3.45 is right around the corner. I think let me double check real quick, but I think the release date is Tuesday, November 1st, right?
Yep, it will be on Tuesday, so I am actually really excited about that. I cannot wait.
Yeah. All right. Well, the two really the only two things I was about to say the two major things, but they're literally the only things included with it, other than maybe tiny hot fixes or some minor fixes that they didn't even put in the release notes or the preliminary notes. Will be the anima weapons and the Palace of the Dead. And I want to get started on the anima weapons because I know that Kane, you just finished your 240 ninja weapon. Is that right?
Yeah, thankfully I finished it. I finished all my anima steps this patch before they nerfed it, so I wanted to keep with that trend, even though I'm doing it fairly casually. It is nice to have it done beforehand before they nerf it, so I don't feel like a complete plebe. Because I hate having to go through and
Sorry, distracted him.
I hate having to go through all those steps after having them nerfed. I don't know. It just feels like I'm not gaining the whole experience, even though I complain about it the entire time. But I'm looking forward to the new steps. So hopefully, it's going to be something like grinding light or something else like that. It's not going to be another complete and utter tedious grind like, hey, you need this amount of umbrite and you need this amount of crystal sand. GG, have fun, kids. Like, figure that out.
I, re-
But go ahead.
I was just saying, I really don't know what they'd implement because usually my recommendation, my advice for everyone would be to stock up on your lore and your poetics even immediately, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe even I doubt they'll make it scripture, but yeah, cap out on everything else that doesn't have a weekly limit, and then of course save as much gil as you can. Because
Yeah.
I, I really don't know. Like, do you think they'll go back to making us run older dungeons and get light or whatever? Like, what
You
do you think
know,
they'll
I,
like, add?
I have a feeling that they will be doing that again, to be perfectly honest, because they implemented that with the Old Relic, which I love too, by the way. My Ninja Blade's best looking ones in the entire series, but that's my opinion. But I have a feeling that they're going to do that again because they did that with the Zeta part. I think they're going to be implementing it again because, I mean, really, they have nowhere else to go unless they want to do more poetic items or say, lore items. But at that point, I mean, it's kind of tricky. It's a toss up on what's going to happen.
Was that so? My concern of that is that fun to you? Like, did you do that part of the relic last time? Even before nerf, post nerf, whenever. Did you even do it? And which I mean,
Yes.
I know you did. You have your Zeta, but sorry. But when you did it, did you even enjoy that part? Like the whole problem I see with it was that
It was
it
a tedious grind.
well, it's always a tedious grind. Like, we can't really get that out of the way, but it basically told you what you're allowed to do. Like, for instance, if something had a blinding light and another one had like a feeble light or whatever the lowest one was, you know people are going to be doing the blinding light one. Like, what's the point of doing the other one? So on one hand, it's nice because it kind of funnels everyone who's interested in getting it done efficiently into one instance or one dungeon or one trial, which means the queues for that would be faster. It also literally means hey, you want to play a game? You have to do this exact thing to do it efficiently, or you're kind of SOL. Whereas before, with the esoteric grind, like even that was kind of annoying, right? Getting like what, anywhere between 24,000 and 40,000 esoterics.
Oh god, dude. Yeah, that grind. I don't even want to talk about the esoteric grind. That was miserable.
Well, it had the problem of being a grind, which sucked. But at the very least, you had multiple options on what you could do. Like, did you want to grind, this dungeon over and over again? Did you want to do this over and over again? Um, it it actually gave you a little bit of a choice. So it's really the difference between the esoteric grind and the light grinds that we did from the first set of relics is your choice, whether you get to choose. Now, what do you think about that? Would you rather see the return of light, or do you want them to like say, hey, cap out your lore and spend it and grind more lore?
To be honest, it all depends. I'm really curious if they're going to implement the light. I think their best bet would to be to get more people to run, say, like Circus Tower or the Crystal Tower raids, is to make those not constantly on blinding light. Maybe have World of Darkness for a couple hours of blinding light, then the other one or Labyrinth of the Ancients, and then Circus Tower on blinding light, or even having Void Ark or Weeping City. Ugh, God, those two on say blinding light or something like that. Something that'll get more people into that content, because I know there's still people trying to clear them even after this game's been out for what 4 years or something like that. I mean, you still got an influx of new people coming in, and I don't know how many of them want to try some of the older 24 man raids, which is what I started out with was Labyrinth of the Ancients and Circus Tower. Those were the two that were out at that point in time, and I loved them. I loved running Circus Tower every day. Shanty can attest to that. I literally ran that dungeon probably like 10 times in a day, every day, because I liked it so much. But I don't know, man, to be completely honest. I'm hoping they implement light, but I don't know how they would do it.
It's Well, it's not like we don't have a bunch of dungeons available to us.
Correct.
We They definitely make us revisit older dungeons. Like I don't think
Mm-hmm.
we'll ever see a bunch of light for like the new Self-Atoll dungeon or Google hard mode, but they'll make us go into um what's what's an old one that we don't really like? The Airy is the Airy one.
Oh, the Airy. You got I hated the Airy, and then you've got some all, which was another crappy dungeon I despised, especially leveling. It's miserable.
While I really appreciate their the way they add content that allows you to be rewarded for going back and helping newer players, which I think is really important. Being able to get the being able to get the
Ignore my roommate. He's drunk and taking a piss.
that's what it sounds like when he's all right. Well, uh, God, yeah, man, really lost my train of thought there. So what I really like is this game and having a way to reward, for lack of a better term, end game players for helping newer players. Like we've already got that with bonuses and the level sync system and commendations and all that. But that's something that I think they've kind of done well, or at least well enough that um, even if people will still naturally hang out in like Idleshire, um, there are social people who will hang out in the major starting cities as well, and we actually we get rewarded for going back. Like for instance, the Palace of the Dead. At first, I was really peeved by the fact that you could only enter in Corrybell, but it was interesting to see another location that people started hanging out at and AFKing at. Like people who really like Palace of the Dead would just AFK there, and that's their new AFK spot. And then that's where they'd hang out. So while I don't want to be forced to be moved into one hub, like everyone in Endgame being forced to be in Isleshire and only Isleshire because it's the only place that makes sense to be, um, we don't have that, and on the extreme opposite, we don't have very sparse populations across every little town where it looks like the game is abandoned, where really there's a ton of different people. They're just all in different places. Like they might be in their FC house, they might be in their personal house, they might be uh, on occasion like me during the Gordius tier. Whenever we finished a floor for the night, I would just AFK craft in the little intermediary room that you get spit out in between turns, in between floors.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're being rewarded for helping new players is an amazing thing that they have implemented. I mean, with the Wondrous Tales bonus that you get, I mean, all that stuff, it is amazing that they've added that. And then you get rewarded on top of that for helping new players clear stuff, or even, people that have been playing for a year and a half that just started right as Heaven's Ward dropped. Those people are still, they haven't touched any of the older raids or anything like that. So, I mean, it's a good thing that they have that option available to everyone. And it's great that they finally did something like that. So you're not going to get a bunch of new people that are just wandering around the empty cities. Like when I started out in Ul'dah, and there was like no one there. And then when I finally got into the end game stuff, when I was able to reach Mordona, it was a night and day difference. Mordona was always packed. It was just to see the population difference between Mordona and Ul'dah and the other city states. It was phenomenal. Like I didn't really think there was very many people in the game to begin with because of the sparse populations in those city states. I mean, you'd see a bunch of Greenleafs running around, but I mean, I didn't really feel like I could talk to anyone at that point to be able to, progress my skill or anything along those lines.
Yeah, there's definitely a kind of, I guess. I've had people tell me that I think actually you might have been one of them, where Square does a decent enough job in providing tutorials within the game, like guild tests or your class quests or the really easy initial dungeons and trials. Like we look at them and we're like, oh, they're face roll easy, but there's a couple of them. There's a couple that are just stupid easy, and I was like, oh, this is a waste of time. It's so boring. But there's a couple that like clearly test your specific role. Whether it's you gotta be whether it's you're as a tank and you're pulling the right things, or you're DPSing, like small things like keeping your gear up to date. All these minor things that we don't think about anymore because we always go in, and unless we're leveling, we're level synced and we're item eye level and item synced, and we have essentially technically the best gear. So we go in and we smash everything. But there's a bunch of people, especially who are leveling, and the poor tanks who are leveling and don't have updated gear are trying to keep up with veteran players in lower level dungeons and trials. But even then, it's a pretty good like test, a pretty good pace at learning how to get better. They introduce more and more AoEs. They introduce bigger and bigger packs of enemies. New mechanics with every boss in every tier, or not tier, every dungeon, and it's just kind of the game doesn't spoon feed you everything, but and it doesn't really completely hold your hand, but it's not really super hard either. Now the downside of and so that the plus side of that is it makes it very easy to pick up, easy to learn. The downside is one, the simplest one is some people find that really boring and they get burned out or lose interest before they even get to level 50, which is what we constantly joke about is level 1 through 50 is your tutorial, like, and then 51 to 60 is your slightly advanced classes. but you're not really gonna learn most of your tricks until you hit the harder content. And there's definitely harder stuff at 50 and in between. The dungeons will test you once in a while between 50 and 60. But all of the tricks that you'll really learn in optimizing your class and playing to its full potential will come through raiding. Like, not everyone's going to be a raider, and I'm not saying that everyone needs to be a raider, and that everyone should aspire to be one, but really, that's really the only way that you're going to learn, like, when your cooldowns are important, right? Because nobody really gives a shit about cooldowns in dungeons.
Oh no, absolutely not. Funny you actually bring that up. I was actually healing for one of my friends, and he's a decent tank, but he got taught by another tank that told him, "Oh, you shouldn't be using cooldowns. Your healer should be keeping you alive, so you don't need to have those on your hotbar." He told me that, and I was like, I don't know who in the hell told you that, but using cooldowns is kind of essential, especially in raiding situations in 24-man raids and stuff like that. You need the cooldowns because there's going to be times where I can't always top you off immediately because dragoons always get hit by stuff, black mages, great DPS, but when you're in ley lines and have a Nokian up, they're not moving. They don't care if they're going to eat a 10,000 hit AoE. They're going to sit there and take it. So I told them you've got to stay on top of this stuff because you're going to need it at some point in time. If you got to pop Living Dead, let me know. I will heal you as fast as I can and get you up so you do not die. But ultimately, yes, I would say endgame rating is going to be where you learn a lot of your tricks and stuff like that that you're not going to necessarily learn from, other players or even running dungeons and leveling stuff like that. Like you'll get some experienced players that'll teach you along the way, but nothing really sinks in until you're in a situation to where you're going to need to be popping shadow skin or whatever. I don't even remember, foresight, dark side, stuff like that. Like any type of mitigation cooldown, anything like that. It's not going to become really relevant until you step foot into the harder content. For example, EX primals, anything along those lines where it's going to test you as a player. To be perfectly honest, it's how do I keep explaining it? It's something you can't really learn until you hit that point. I mean, you could be told until until that person's face turns blue, but you're not going to get the entire grasp of everything until you see, I need to pop this at this point, or I need to use this cooldown right before this one because there's going to be a tank buster or hard hitting AoE, and if I have blood for blood up, I'm going to die. Like, you won't understand these things until you step foot into these harder content fights.
Yeah. So, uh, when you were talking about the dungeons and that one tank telling you don't need to do cooldowns, part of the problem is that, let's say you don't do it, and we see that all the time, you can still, um, well, I'll get around to that as we saw your message. Well, you can still get through a dungeon by having other people cover for you, like either having a healer have to heal more, or the DPS just kill faster, or if everyone's not doing everything properly, no cooldowns are being used, combos are not being done properly, you will fail that dungeon. That has happened several times. But it's really there to teach people how to the entire set of dungeons up to 50 and even up to 60, for instance, where the new with the new skills is meant to teach you your rotations, teach you to use your cooldowns and stuff in such a way that it's not the end of the world if you die. Like, it's not a wipe usually. Like, there has to be several fuck ups if it's a wipe. Like, the tank needs to fuck up, the healer needs to fuck up, the DPS needs to fuck up. Either you fail the DPS check, you fail the heal check, you fail to cool down properly, all that stuff. Um, Whereas if one person screws up majorly and dies, it's not always a wipe in a dungeon unless it's the tank, but or the healer. but it's usually death in end game raids. Like someone dies, and either you salvage the fight by pushing it really hard, or losing out somewhere else, losing DPS. But basically, it's kind of like a way to train without being severely punished for making mistakes, which is good. So this whole long-winded discussion about how dungeons and trials and how the game is set up to teach you things along the way is really a kind of a jab at Square, because we were talking about, or what started this, what sparked it, was how we kind of applauded Square for adding things like the Novice Hall, but then we kind of like were still shocked to find it didn't really teach anything that's really required. Like in order to learn how to raid properly or learn how to play your class properly, you still need someone to help you learn the ropes. Unless you're willing to figure everything out on your own, and at that point, that's a level of dedication and commitment that most people don't do. And uh, sometimes just doing the trials or raids or harder end game content is what will make is some of the only thing that'll make people actually learn, right? Like, you can watch guides and do videos and hit dummies all
Uh
you
huh.
want, but unless you're in something, wiping and dying to it,
Yep.
you're not going to learn
You're not
from
going
it.
to learn from the fight. I mean, some people can learn by watching, but the best experience is to actually get in there and just get the tar beat out of you for an hour and a half and learn from it.
Yeah.
But
So what I'm hoping, because we were kind of getting a little bit sidetracked from this. What I am
oh yeah,
hoping is that instead of just doing a really super simple and lazy, in my opinion, super lazy rehash of the old relic and say, do the airy 300 times to get your light that's needed. To get your light or your aether or your blood or your dildos, whatever we use as the counter for how many runs we do. Um,
wait. Hold on. Did you just say use your dildos?
yeah, the point was it doesn't matter what the token is.
I
You
just
can,
wanted to make sure I heard that correctly.
yeah, the point was it didn't matter what token or what we're gathering, what we're accumulating over our runs. Um, if it's something that's like just go do older dungeons, that's super lazy and super. Uh, it might help, like if you're willing to teach. If you go into area and you see a crappy tank or crappy healer or crappy whatever your job is, and you take the time to tell them how to play it better, or simply by being there and doing it well, you kind of in a way help teach others or help others learn by them doing it as well. I really hope that they tweak it a little bit more and they give us light for failures. Like not enough light that we'd want to sabotage the fight every time just because it's faster, you know? Like if you get, like, let's just arbitrary numbers here. If you get 10 light for clearing Sophia X or something, or Sophia normal even, and you get like 1 or 2 light for failing it, uh, you bet your ass some people are just gonna straight up fail it over and over again.
Oh yeah, there's gonna be people that just tank the fight because they can. It's like what's faster, running 10 minutes and getting one clear and getting 10 light, or failing in 5 seconds and getting your 1 to 2 light per clear. So
Yeah,
there's gonna be exploits no matter which direction you look at it. I mean, people will find a way. They always do because they want the quick, easy way out for the most part. But I mean, most people will genuinely try to complete something instead of just, oh, I'm going to keep wiping this over and over until I get, you know, or until I'm completely done. So I'm actually really curious to see what they're going to be doing, to be completely honest.
yeah. I kind of want I so I kind of backtracking a little. I guess I want them, or backpedaling a little. I kind of want them to introduce something kind of like light, some kind of counter, some kind of thing you accumulate. However, I want them to introduce it in a way that allows us to take new people, or not even allows us, but encourage us to take new people into harder fights. Like for instance, imagine doing a trial and getting 10 or 20 light for defeating it, right? Now, in order to prevent exploits, you don't get light just for dying. Like that's again, I'm going to use Sophia Extreme. You load in and then you jump off the platform immediately because the walls are gone at the very beginning of the fight. No light at all should be awarded for that. However, I think they should award light like as we fight and we enter new phases. I think we should accumulate light, like get light for reaching certain phases of the fight. So not just completing it,
Oh yeah.
but getting to a part.
So like 1 to 2 light for the first phase, and then 3 to 4 light for the second phase. So that way you get an accumulative, say, 10 light for completing the fight. And each phase you get, so you'll get 6 light total if you make it to phase 2,
Yeah,
or something along those lines,
basically,
right?
yeah, basically something that encourages people to do more than farm blindless born. Because, like, for instance, what if someone can't finish Sophia? Like, okay, let's say Sophia is the blinding one or the most popular one because everyone just wants it. They said, "Hey, Party Finder, let's do that. Let's get these Sophia runs in because I want my clear possibly." Or it's a learning party. Um, the whole point of this was me trying to harp on it would be nice if we were encouraged to help people learn instead of either taking it upon ourselves and just being nice, because there are people like that. I've met a lot of people who are willing to take, learning parties, and hopefully they don't devolve into trap parties, but they'll take the time out of their day to teach people for nothing other than maybe socializing or maybe even the bonus. Maybe they want that bonus lore. But with this next anima step, it'd be nice if they could encourage us to do that, to implement an actual in-game mechanic that encourages us to go in, maybe not even have our anima equipped. Maybe we could have like some kind of book or some kind of canister that we fill with ether or whatever. But the point is, they'll encourage us to make these parties, make these learning parties, and take people who aren't on farm status, who aren't in our status, who aren't in our link shells, just random people who, you know, maybe aren't the most social, maybe aren't the
Who
most
want to
lucky.
learn the fights and
Yeah,
push through them. I think something like even adding, extra light or whatever, extra ether to having a new party member in, like Sophia EX, getting that clear for someone, showing them the fight. That way they can learn these fights too, and they don't feel completely left out of everything. Like, I know a bunch of people that will just go in there, they'll pay for their clear, and they don't even want to learn the fight. Like, they just want to go in for 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, get the clear, and then that's it for them. They don't care about learning mechanics. They just want that clear. It's not as rewarding, I guess, to be completely honest. If they, I don't know. You see, there's just so many directions that this could take a turn at. You'll have people selling Sophia EX or selling some of the harder EX primals just so that way they can get that bonus, or they'll exploit it to where they have, uh, they'll have one slot open, say, a room for 1 DPS, must have bonus, will take you through all your EX primals.
yeah.
I don't know. I could just see something like that happening.
Mm. So it's really long-winded discussion. We're essentially we're hoping that they do the next anima step properly, or at the very least, it's not a simple light grind again. Because I will do it because actually that's the next subtopic I want to talk about. But I will be doing it. It would suck if it's just bash your head against this arbitrary accumulation wall for the next week or two, and then you get your next step. I just hope they added something a little bit different. And because of their current track record of introducing, like Wondrous Tales is amazing because it gets people doing older content, and it's an in-game official way to encourage doing older stuff. Wondrous Tales just for doing older stuff, just for fun and grouping people together, and then Second Chance for like I'm doing the mentor roulette now, like more often. I'm doing it daily instead of when I feel like being helpful. Now I'm doing it daily because it's, well, one, it's kind of nice to be helpful, but two, I'm looking for those second chance points.
Oh yeah, me not being in the mentor network makes it extremely difficult for me to get those second chance points. It would be nice, but I generally don't hold my breath trying to get those.
Yeah. Well, so the reason why I bring up or the next subtopic, still talking about the anima. I noticed this in, what is it? Was it the Gordius tier? No, I noticed this in the. I kind of noticed it in the Gordius tier, but it became readily apparent in the Midas tier that the way they're incrementing the anima steps, the anima eye level, is done in such a way that it is actually viable. It's actually, I think it might actually be raid preferable, raid preferential. I don't know what word I was looking for, but it might actually be preferred to get your anima, get your relic, get your anima, and then save your scripture for other pieces of gear. Because if, not if, when 3.45 drops next Tuesday, right? There will be
Yeah,
there
Tuesday.
will, yeah, there will be people who don't have the lore weapon yet. Like if they haven't cleared A10S yet, they don't have access to a lore weapon. And even if they did clear A10S, like we have our members of our static spending 1,000 scripture on the weapon, right? So they get the tome, they get the weapon. For people who haven't cleared A10S, they have to wait one more week after 3.45 drops. So they have to wait till November 8th to get their 7th creator gear. I forgot what it's called. Alexander gear to get their 7th one, and then spend 1,000 tomestones of scripture on top of that. Then they can get their lore weapon. However, for people like you and me who have kept up with their relic, we have the 240. We have 1 week to finish that step and potentially even get it before other people get their lore, people who haven't cleared A10S. But I think this is slightly more important, we save 1,000 scripture. Like that 1,000 scripture is the difference between me finishing all of my scripture gear that I need in the next 2 or 3 weeks, or having to wait another 2 or 3 weeks to accumulate everything again because I had to spend 1,000 on a weapon.
You see, I agree with that entirely. But I mean, in some cases, like myself, I only did one anima. I made ninja for since 2.5. Whenever I first started, after I got my paladin to 50, I went and got my ninja to 50, and that was my main for about a year. And then I joined a static, and they didn't need a ninja, so I swapped to Dark Knight at that point in time, and I did not want to keep. I didn't want to go back and redo all those anima steps over and not have a finished Dark Knight sword by the time that 3.45 dropped. It just wasn't in the cards for me. So I mean, at this point, I'm just gonna suck it up and deal with Shire weapons. So I mean, I'll keep rocking my Sophic blade until that point. But I mean, 1,000 tomes—that's not that big of a deal for me. I mean, it's not irrelevant at this point, especially for me. I'm sure there's other people out there, that are like that want to have that 1,000 bonus or 1,000 extra scripture to get separate gear, to get different gear instead of blowing it all on one item and having to wait 7 weeks when you could have just done your whole anima step and finished all that stuff with. But I don't know. We'll see where things go. I'm kind of curious, to be completely honest.
Well, that's definitely the trade-off. So for you, 1,000 scripture is like nothing. You're like, oh no, it's not worth doing the anima for me because you're probably in a similar boat for me. I actually got because I when Gordius was when I was doing Gordius, um, bef- I had initially remember I told you this. I had initially thought that I would definitely main scholar for the entire Alexander raid tier, and I would run white mage once we've learned it, like once it's on farm, and I can white mage party finders or just pickups, just random statics that need a sub. I could heal as well, but I and because of that choice, I would be getting all of my scholar gear through raiding and through what was it at that time? Was it not Lord, not Esos? It was Esos, was it? Yeah, through Esos. And I would be and I went and I bought my scholar book. I bought my scholar book using my Esos with the weekly tokens.
We won't
And
talk about your blunder at that point.
oh no, let's talk about it. So so a very quick aside. It's one of our what do we call it?
One
Scrub
of
talk.
our,
Scrub talk.
yeah,
Uh, so scrub talk. What was it? Was it a? Oh
it
well,
was
okay.
last year,
So
so
I
it was
did it.
A7.
So I got the scholar book through tomes for both Gordius and Midas, and in Midas I got the scholar 230 book, and because I had a ton of extra not extra, but because I had picked up a lot of Savage gear, I was able to buy my Summoner book as well. Um, Unfortunately, the upgrade item that dropped from what was it A7S? The upgrade item. I was so excited about being able to finally upgrade my weapon that I accidentally turned in my Summoner book with the upgrade item, and I got my 240 Summoner book instead of my 240 Scholar. Uh,
Yeah, well, I mean, I kind of did the same thing with House of Dead.
you did with your
I
was it
spent
Gut
like,
Paladin?
yeah, I no, I did White Mage
Oh
because
jeez.
I thought it would be like every other freaking weapon vendor where you get to select the item, but no. I had White Mage equipped instead of having my Dark Knight equipped, and I spent what was it, 2 weeks getting that all squared away, getting all the 30 plus 30, and then I realized I was like, oh crap, that didn't just happen. I was like, oh my god, my stomach sank. So the next couple days I spent grinding getting my Dark Knight weapon. I was not happy. I literally spent 3.5 days in Palace of the Dead just to get my weapon from there because it was better than the lore weapon at the time for Dark Knight. It just wasn't worth it to me. So yeah, well, that was one of my many blunders.
I kind
Like one of the oh shit, I can't believe I just did that.
I kind of believe, or I kind of don't believe we spent that much. You spent that much time just re-grinding it out again, and like that was to fix your problem. You grinded it out again. To fix my problem, I just waited till next week where my static. Well, so we're kind of talking about this in local chat. But like with weapon drops and weapon upgrade drops, especially with the weapon upgrade drops, it goes to DPS first. Usually it goes to DPS first, then tanks, then healers finally. But where I was kind of lucky that it was by the time I got my, uh, it was my turn. Everyone else was done. Like I was able to get the next Gobdip, was that what it's called? I was able to get the next token next week as well, the next upgrade weapon. So I just had to wait a week and then clear A7S again. But just literally, that was mine. But before we get too off track, the point was that 1,000 scripture is technically 2 and a little bit over 2 weeks. However, working on an anima is much faster than that. Like, or not much faster, much longer than that. Much more tedious, right? And the
Oh
two
yeah,
2 weeks of capping scripture is really easy to do. I mean, unless you only log in once or twice a week, you can cap your scripture pretty early.
Yeah, I mean, I'm usually capped on Wednesday afternoon. That's like Tuesday. I wake up early enough to get in before the daily reset, and then I rerun everything. I'll run a couple more dungeons, get the the bonus or not bonus, the scripture from that, and then I'll just run Alexander until I get it, like until I'm done, and that's it.
Yeah.
It's very quick.
So it's not horrible. Um, and I think yours is kind of a special case because of the fact that you. So what I said about saving scripture, which is what I'm doing right now, I'm saving it, and I'm okay with that because it allows me to get all my, well, at least buy all the best in slot pieces or the pieces that I will be upgrading to best in slot for me as scholar. The only reason it works for me is because I am dedicated scholar. Like I knew throughout the entire raid tier that I was sticking to scholar, even though um, I went from white mage to Astro in Gordius after Gordius, because I went and I got my 200 white mage relic, and then that's when I talked to you and I was like, I'm an idiot. I should have gotten my scholar one because Midas dropped, and two things happened. One, I found that I enjoyed Astro a lot more than white mage. Two, uh, the timing. So I saw the timing of the gold. It's going to happen. It's actually not going to happen. It's happening exactly the same as it is here with the creator. Like right now, if you've been keeping up with it every week, you have 5 Alexander tokens. You're going to get the 6th one next Tuesday, and then the 7th one will be a week after. However, the the um, the next anima step will be available as soon as Tuesday. And although I don't expect a lot of people to be getting it that very first week, there will be some people that have it on the first day. Come next Tuesday, there will be some people, like a day in or 2 days in, will be, here is my next anima step. And it
Hmm.
is possible to get it that quickly.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, when we'll take the Zeta for example. I mean, I we were running T5 to help someone get their clear, and this was like at 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. And the Saint kind of joined our party. He was like, "Oh, I'm new. I've never cleared this fight. Yada yada yada." We're like, "All right, dude. All right. We'll figure it out. We'll take you through." And then we get in there. We see his gear. I'm like, "Holy shit, dude! He's got the Excalibur Zeta." I was like, "You're lying to us. There's no way you have never cleared any of this." He's like, "Yeah, I was just joking with you guys, see if you guys would kick me." Like, and this was on the very first day that it was out, and he got it within a couple of hours. He's like, I was like the third or fourth person to get it on the server. I was like, Jesus Christ, man. He's like, how? I asked him how long did it take. He's like, oh, it only took a couple hours. I mean, there was a lot of us grinding Garuda and stuff like that. We would find all the blinding light stuff and just jump to that. It's like, all right, well, that makes perfect sense then. Why you guys were done so fast? So it's mind-boggling how fast people get those things done at times. It's insane the amount of dedication and effort they'll put into that. I mean, I would too if I had all the extra time, but I enjoy taking my times on certain things. But it just depends, really, I guess, on the person who wants it bad enough.
Yeah, it really depends on one, how willing, how much you plan beforehand, and one, yeah, no, it really is boils down to how much you plan beforehand on two different things, because one is knowing which class you're going to stick with, because it's a lot of effort to get just one animal weapon, one relic for each job, and then two, um, preparing and sticking to it with like for instance, I figured it out at the Gordius tier. I figured out that I was actually behind because I had used my I had used my crystals on my white mage cane, and then I ran the dungeons to get it to 200. And as soon as I did that and I thought this through, I thought, oh man, I really should have done it for scholar. And then when Gordius dropped, or not Gordius, when Midas dropped, and I saw the 230 come out around the same time as the 230 lore come out around the same time as the 230 relic, I thought to myself, damn, I should have done Scholar instead. So I went back and I spent the time and I got my 230 weapon and ultimately my 240 weapon, but I had already or my 240 anima weapon, but at that point I had already been sitting on my 240 Scholar weapons. I had my 240 Scholar and 240 Summoner weapon before I got before I even got the relic to 230. Like I did it, I was catching up, but all of it was in preparation for this tier. So this tier, I'll have my relic right away, I hope, depending on the details that drop on Tuesday. But I am essentially prepared for it and prepared to get it from my scholar, prepared to dump all my excess resources. Like I've capped I've capped lore, and I still need to cap poetics just in case. And then I obviously have enough gil to do whatever is needed if it's gil related. But
Yep, I
it's all
just need to
preparation.
cap lore. That is the last thing I need to do. I've been capped on poetics for like 3 weeks now. I have no idea what to spend them on. I'm glad I did, but that'll be my next step. Is probably tomorrow start capping out on my lore, running ARF over and over
Yeah.
and over
Nah, don't
until
do
I'm
that.
done.
Don't do that. Just go find bonus. uh,
I mean, I could put a PF up for helping people clear EX primals and stuff like that for all that bonus.
actually, are you just missing a healer at 60?
What do you mean?
Okay. Context. Mentor roulette. Are you just
I have a
missing?
healer at 60. I've got my
You have everything
astrologer.
then. So why don't you have mentor? Why aren't you a mentor?
Because I don't have a crafter to 60.
Do you need that?
I
I don't
think
think you
so.
need that. I think you just need either all the battle classes or a crafter and gather at 60. What either or. Go check it out. The point I'm trying to make is mentor roulette is super easy. Super easy. Like sometimes I go in and I get Aurum Veil and it sucks. It blows. Like I queued for Aurum Veil the other day. It was a 20-minute queue and I thought to myself, the first thing I think to myself when I get a 20-minute queue for any roulette is, oh hey, I'm gonna join in on like the second to last boss or on the last boss and it'll be a super quick clear. Usually that's what happens, and I love it every time that happens. This time I dropped into Aurum Vale, 20 minutes had passed, and they were still in the first starting area. They haven't even cleared the area. Like people were just, it was just bad. Um, so sometimes you get really crappy mentor roulettes. Sometimes you get really, really easy roulettes. Like I got into Ifrit story mode, I think. And within 5 minutes or so I was done and there was my 30 scripture or something, 30 lore. It was a lot. It was ludicrous. Like I was like I got a huge reward for very little effort. So that's what actually made me one reason why I'm going back and doing mentor roulette every day.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look into that because last I checked, it was you need one gatherer, one crafter, and then your battle classes. You need one of each to 60 before you could become a mentor. So, unless things have changed, which they very well may have, I
Yeah.
just I don't think I've been able to unlock it. I don't even know where to unlock it, to be perfectly honest.
Well, as a mentor, let me show you sometime. Uh, uh
That got creepy.
let me show you, Kane. We'll just have to make sure we dim the lights in the studio and lock the door. Uh,
Make sure no one else is around.
and bring out the Lalafels. Uh, okay, so back on topic. Anima, um, kind of beating her for dead horse. It's totally possible to get a unless you're regularly clearing A12S. No, actually, you get the weapon upgrade from A11S. So unless you're
Yeah,
regularly clearing A11S, Relic is a viable option for you.
absolutely.
And then on
Absolutely.
top of that, you get the best stats on it. And even after, do you think they'll do it again? Just kind of look in the future. Do you think that after the Alexander tier, that once you do the final step for your relic, it will be the absolute best in slot, unless your
Yes.
unless your A12S weapon happens to have all the best secondaries, then it'll be a toss-up between that and a relic.
I believe that your animal weapon is going to be your best in slot. One, because it's more than likely going to be 5 item levels higher than your Alexandrian stuff, anyways. So, I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
obviously,
let's take some bets. What do you think the next anima step is gonna, what its eye level will be?
I have a feeling of the next anima or the final anima
Next
step.
next one.
I'm going to say it's probably going to be around 270, maybe
Whoa.
265. I'm not too sure, to be honest, because they didn't add the Zeta step until maybe 4 or 5 months before Heaven's Ward. So, I mean, the Zeta step wasn't really relevant very long, and that was a 135.
I'm
So,
hmm, I'm I want to say it's gonna be two. Okay, all right. Let's go back a little bit. Uh, with the Zeta, what were the eye levels? You went from one. Okay, I'm going back really far. You went from 100 to
uh huh,
110, and then 110
110,
to 120,
mm-hmm,
then 120 to
130,
130,
and then you went from 130 to 135, if I
which was
remember correctly.
the
I could be
same as
wrong.
the Dreadworm weapons.
Correct.
So this one, I'm willing to bet that the 3.45 patch will introduce the 260 version. Then the
Yes.
next patch, 3.55 or whatever, will introduce the
I
270
have a feeling,
version.
yeah, that I have a feeling that the 3.55 may be our final step, or they might hold off until it's going to be like 3.65, maybe that late in the game.
So
To
if it's the final step, I think it'll be 275, the same as the creator weapons. If it's the second to last step, I think it'll be 270. And then the final
I
step,
agree.
obviously bumping it up to 275.
Right, like they did with the Zeta step. But I mean, at this point, it's just speculation. I'm really
But
hoping.
hey, if they let us skip a step and they give us 270, just like you said, oh boy.
Yes. Oh God, yes, that would be amazing.
Okay, so that's wishful thinking.
Yes. Now, let's the Palace of the Dead. I'm looking forward to that. Floors 51 through 200.
So,
I'm curious what they've got in store for that. To be honest with you.
do you think a weapon will drop with that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's probably going to be around 265 or something like that. Kind of like what
265.
the last Palace of the Dead weapon was. It wasn't the greatest eye level. It was what 235. So I was
That's interesting though. Okay, so okay, so if you introduce Palace of the Dead and it's 265, what's the point of getting your scripture or relic weapon?
correct. But because the Palace of the Dead weapon, it won't take very long to grind it. So those people who have been kind of slacking and spending their scripture on other things, depending on the stats, does it outweigh the benefits of waiting? So I mean, it's kind of a toss up because I don't know. I haven't seen anything on stat wise. I haven't really checked Ariala lately, to be completely honest. So I mean, I don't know if it's showing stats on there yet or what for that portion of it, or even if there's an eye level set for it yet. So I'm kind of curious. Like, a, is it going to be a best in slot item if you don't want to grind out the scripture for it, or if you haven't done the anima step yet? So I mean, it's kind of a toss up at this point. It's something that I'm really curious about, to be perfectly honest.
So if the palace, so basically, what it boils down to is if the Palace of the Dead weapon is, if it follows the same pattern as the last raid tier, where the first Palace of the Dead weapons are 235, which is 5 eye levels higher than the lore weapons at 230. Um, if that happens and the anima next step is 260, that would honestly kind of suck a little bit for the anima for people like me for a little while. But and it would definitely suck for the people who are stuck with just the scripture weapon, because I mean, we'll both get upgrades eventually, but we're probably not going to get them right away. And man, that's thrown the monkey wrench into my plans and figuring out, like, is it still? I think it's still worth it. But if Palace of the
Oh
Dead
yeah,
comes out, what
absolutely,
if
dude.
Palace of the Dead doesn't even have a weapon right away in 3.45? It's all for
Oh,
bragging
oh,
rights and the leaderboard.
that's a very good point too. I, I don't know, to be honest with you. I mean, if they're going to stick with the same, cookie cutter ideas, it generally would be the same thing. Like it's going to be that in between weapon for people who didn't want to grind out the scripture or didn't want to clear Midas yet, or the creator yet, but they have a viable option at this point in time. Because I know there's a lot of people, especially on our server, who aren't too deep into wanting to, do the 8-man raids weekly and stuff like that. They just want to enjoy the game and go out and do random shenanigans and stuff like that. I mean, you come across those people all the time. Oh, I have, and I'm just curious, like, what are you doing that you don't want to do this? But I mean, everyone enjoys the game differently. So at that point, it's that fair middle ground for people that, or for the players that don't really want to get into that, rating scene or anything like that. They just want to enjoy the game for what it is and go out and play grab ass with their friends in Palace of the Dead until they get, that 30 out of 30 or 50 out of 50 or whatever it's going to be at that point. So they can get their, 265 weapon. It just really all depends. I mean, that's what I have a feeling it's going to be, the 265. So it's going to be that in between step. Because I don't know. I think the anima weapon is going to be a 270. The new Pajali weapon is going to be 265, and then you're going to have your Shire stuff. Once you're able to augment it, it's going to be, that 270 stuff. So I mean, it's right in that fair ground to where it's not, you don't have to run everything every week to be able to get, your scripture weapon, and it's not a tedious grind like the anima weapon. So I mean, they've leveled the playing field fairly well for the people that didn't want to get too much into the end game rating scene and stuff like that, for the casuals essentially. So I
That's
think it's a
interesting, and
uh huh.
that's interesting, and I'm revising my guess to match what yours is probably going to be like, because if 2.45 is the next anima step and probably 2.55 will be the last one, it makes sense for them to introduce a 270 level, which would make
Mm-hmm.
me honestly really excited, because it's like, oh hey, I don't need to finish A11S to upgrade my weapon, and
Uh huh.
that would actually help another person in our group. But yeah, that's interesting,
Yep.
man.
I'm
And
kind of curious to see what's gonna happen. To be honest.
I think I'll still do the Palace of Dead weapon too, because some of them
Oh
look really
yeah.
sweet.
I think the red weapon looks sweet as hell. To be perfectly honest, I mean, not as great as my Dreadworm sword, but it looks sweet.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of wrapping up on Palace of the Dead, I know we gave Anima weapons way more weight than Palace of the Dead, but that's because we have history. We have historical data on Anima weapons, and we have conjecture. We can come up with theories. Palace of the
Mm-hmm.
Dead is all it's right out there. We don't know what the hell is going on really. But for the leaderboard, you bet I'm gonna be seeing how far I can push it as a scholar.
Oh yeah. I'm going to be pushing it as hard as I can with my Dark Knight or even with my Ninja at that point. I'm curious to see what's going to happen. So I'm really excited what this next patch actually has in store for us, albeit a small patch. Like there's not going to be any huge monumental changes, no new raids or anything like that. It's something that most people can look forward to. That'll kind of break the tedious weekly grind that we're going through at this point in time.
Yeah, and speaking of breaking out through the tedious weekly grind, wrapping up our show for tonight is the final topic, the current seasonal event, which is called All Saints Wake, and it's the recurring yearly Halloween event, really, for if you're like, oh yeah, I don't care about them. Actually, I was actually thinking, is it them trying to be politically correct or whatever? It's like, oh no, it's just them coming out with their own spin on this fairly, I don't know if it's a natural, not national. Man, I'm not trying to sound super ignorant now because I don't know how many people celebrate Halloween because I know it's not it's not celebrated
Oh yeah.
everywhere. But the point is, this is essentially their version of it in North America, just because we're one of their main target audiences, the North American audience. And this year, All Saints Wake had an instance dungeon, which people applauded as a nice new thing, as a nice
Oh, dude, I love the new dungeon. It was great. Like, the first time I went there, I didn't know exactly what was going on. I didn't know what I was supposed to be doing. So, I mean, I got turned into a pumpkin like 3 dozen times. I didn't know what was going on. But I thoroughly enjoyed it once I figured out what we were supposed to be doing. I like how the objectives changed each time you went in there. It wasn't the same thing, for the first step, second step. So I mean, you had to figure out where you're supposed to be going all throughout the manor. It was very enjoyable. It was better than the standard fate farming that they like to throw out at you. Farm this 5 times and you're done. They did kind of that with the instant dungeon, but you only had to run it like 3 or 4 times, but it was very enjoyable because you'd just sit there and laugh at the people who got turned into a pumpkin. Then, a few seconds later, guess who gets turned into a pumpkin because you were busy laughing at the other guy?
so so I was horrible on my first run, but I think I picked it up pretty quickly and ended up blazing through the next few instances. But it was kind of a double-edged sword because sometimes you'll just get really frustrating people. I don't want to even say bad players, but like because I don't know if it's bad or just straight up ignorant or trolling. Like I think it was just ignorant or just not knowing what they were doing because the one I hate the most is the one where you get clues for the boxes and it tells you what
Oh,
room number it ends in and what floor it's on. And
uh
every time
huh.
you open a box and it's wrong, you lose like 30 sanity. I had a group, I don't know who did it, but someone immediately like we blazed through the first two sets of we blazed through the first two sets of challenges with very little sanity lost, even though the one person was constantly being turned into a pumpkin. But when that challenge came up, whoever it was ended up just opening every chest they found and immediately kicked us out of the instance.
Yeah,
And
I had that happen to me too on my very first time in there. We were all trying to figure it out, and this person was just going to every room and opening every chest. I was like, don't do that. Hold on, let's try to figure this out. And then, like 30 seconds later, you have failed. You have lost all sanity, or whatever it said.
then you're kicked
We're just
out.
like, okay, well, I queued like 2 seconds later. I went back, and then we just burned right through it. It was easy peasy at that point. So I
Yeah.
mean, it's just finding the people that are willing to listen and take their time and, as with anything, figure it out before just going completely balls out and hoping for the best.
Yeah, unfortunately, if you take out just that one challenge, the rest of it was uh, relatively simple and what's the word? Nice
Mind
to
numbing.
no, nice or easygoing on new people new to it. Because not gonna lie, really, the first time I joined in, I was like, I have no idea what's going on, and I ran around for a little bit. I got turned into a pumpkin 2 or 3 times, and I finally realized I should not walk in front of that, or I should not walk near that at all. That one's line of sight. That one is just area around it, stuff like that. And
Mm-hmm.
it ended up I ended up doing it 4 times to get 12 tokens because I didn't really care for the food or any of the other stuff. Well, maybe I kind of want to go back and get the pumpkin head one because that was kind of funny. But I went and picked up all the furniture and the not the furniture, the music.
The music.
That was enough for me. But it was a nice little thing, and it was a nice change of pace from Fates. Like like usual, it's one of those new things that they put out, which is pretty good, but has some very obvious kinks in it, some very obvious flaws that they need to not do next time.
Oh, absolutely. But I mean, for the most part, I'm assuming a lot of the community enjoyed it because it wasn't your, fate grind, or the for example, the Easter um, seasonal event where you chase the egg around Old Gridania. Like stuff like that is fun. It breaks the monotony and how they had fate inside of Old Gridania. But it's still kind of the exact same thing they've been doing. I mean, if you find a formula that works, stick with it. But sometimes people want to try something different, like the Halloween event. I think it worked out great. It was something that I enjoyed, and I've got to take some friends through it as well because they haven't been on. But I'm excited for it. I'm happy that they did something like that.
Oh yeah, has Veda done it?
She has not, but hopefully she gets on before it ends, so that way we can run her through it. Because I know it'll be a lot easier if we've got a full party comp
Yeah.
versus trying to go in with just randoms.
Yeah, I'd actually I think I might like to farm a couple more of those pumpkin heads. Hell, I might even do it one more time tonight. But yeah.
You know what? I actually probably should take Shanty through that as well, so I might log into that
Oh
character.
yeah, and Jay.
Yeah.
Jay through that too.
So we'll see. We'll see what
Oh
happens. But I enjoyed it. It was a fun thing to break the monotony.
yeah.
Wasn't too happy with some of the rewards. Was kind of hoping they had that freaking flying chair,
Oh.
but we
Really?
didn't get any. We got a minion, and then we've got the 2 songs. That's about it.
So
There was nothing really super awesome about this event compared to the last ones.
So related
quite
to
fair.
that, we definitely did not get. We didn't get a minion. Or not a minion. We didn't get a mount. We got a minion this time. And on top of that, the old flying broom mount, which is honestly pretty awesome. Just it doesn't fit my character, but if anyone wants to play cute witch girl that flies around on a broomstick, it's perfect. It's actually pretty nice. One second, slight minor technical difficulty.
All right,
Yeah.
sorry about that. I don't know what happened.
Well, I was just talking about how we didn't see a return of the broom mounts, which is pretty awesome, especially if it doesn't fit my character, but if you're a cute female Mikote witch cosplayer that wants to fly around on a broom, it's perfect. And it's not available in game as a reward from the event. However, and I think this is very consistently what they're doing moving forward, it is available in the Mog Station.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know the price on it. I'm willing to bet
it's like $5 or
it's
something
$5?
like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
They could have easily gotten 10 from that. I don't know why they put it at 5, but I hope they're not listening, so they can keep the price down at 5. But yeah, I think they're gonna keep putting old seasonal event items into Mog Station, which isn't the worst. But if they're gonna do that, they need to put all of them in there. Like I'm still waiting on.
I want those cherry trees in there. I will spend $20 on cherry trees.
Oh boy, cherry trees.
Because that is the one thing I should have bought a lot of, but I didn't because I was dumb.
Yep.
Or at least make it available so you can buy it from the Calamity vendor, but make it so it's not tradable or sellable on the market board.
That's really hard to. That's really hard to enforce.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
I mean, there's ways around it. Like people put you on their lease, or you join someone's free company, and you drop all your cherry trees, and then you leave the free company or leave that person's lease, and then they've got free reign to move the cherry trees and stuff around. But it's just one of those things I wish that we could implement or even have them craftable at this point, because it's been over a year. Something needs to be done because I want those godforsaken cherry trees.
Crafting a tree?
Yes. But you can make the Dravinian down tree too, so.
Yeah, we made a bunch of other shit. I'm gonna take this lumber and turn it back into a tree. What?
We're just going to reverse engineer the tree. No big deal here.
Yeah, we got the Sifrat tree and all that. So, all right. Well, I think that's pretty much it for today. We went a lot. We talked a lot more about the animal weapon than I thought we would, and
Mm-hmm.
definitely gave it a lot more time than Palace of the Dead or All Saints Wake. But I think it was the big one, especially with patch 3.5 coming along.
Mm-hmm.
And Palace of the Dead is another one of those things where it's like we'd love to talk more about it, but we just don't have that much information
Yeah,
yet.
we don't know that much about it, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think so. So just we're lining up. We're lining up interviews for our next show, and I think that we'll probably touch on Palace of the Dead a little bit before that, like right at the beginning, maybe and get them to talk about it. But
Mm-hmm.
I think that'll be a good one for the next show. And yeah,
Should we also mention what the next week's show prize is going to be for those listening,
well,
or shall we
yeah,
wait?
let's do that right now because it's right around time. Actually, can you ping Genos because he is going to be playing the minigame today, and we're still doing
Yeah.
it. And for those of you listening, it's also on the Facebook post. But today our prizes will be a choice between a wind up Ifrit, a wind up Titan, a wind up Ramu, or a wind up Shiva. Those are the four we have available today, and next, we're gonna rotate them out. We've got a bunch of different rewards. I think I'll be rotating in wind up Leviathan and Garuda next, and take out one of the others. But these are going to be fairly regular prizes on our show, along with other other prizes that we come up with. Like last time, it was a bluebird, I think.
Mm-hmm. And then just all before that.
Oh, okay. Oh, unfortunately, he is in Lost City.
So, well, at this point, so for next week, we will be doing our normal game show, but whoever wins has the option of having a crafted item made for them, whether it be for your battle class, your gathering class, or your crafting class.
Yes.
Now so whoever wins will let me and Bellator know what it is you want. We will get it made for you, and we will send that over to you as soon as it's done. So, I mean, I would suggest being here for that, especially
Yeah.
since we're hopefully going to be having Genos here, as well as a few members of Toast who are actually our server first A12S. Congrats to you guys on that. So we will be
Yeah. This is the
having that
return.
giveaway as well. So it's kind of
Oh, call dropped. Oh boy.
keeps happening.
Yeah, you're back.
Okay.
So yeah, Genos and are they still called there's Secret Oatmeal, right? Like
Yeah,
they're
secret oatmeal,
yeah,
but I call them Toast over my
Toast.
SC.
Yeah, so server first. Yeah, and they'll hopefully be on. And then Genos will talk about what he'll be doing because he's doing a piece as well on
Mm-hmm.
the entire raiding scene in general.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Now, where did I drop the call at? I forgot where I was
just
at. I
right
don't even.
there where you're explaining who
Okay.
was going to be at the
Okay.
who
Perfect.
we're
Perfect.
interviewing.
Perfect. All right. Well, hopefully we have more people inclined to join us next week, so we can have a bigger turnout for the show. I mean, it's a free crafted item at that point in time. So, is that pretty much everything you want to talk about tonight?
Yep, that is it. So thank you guys for tuning in.
Absolutely.
And sorry to Genos, but you're in Lost City right now. We've got to cut the stream. So unfortunately, you are, I guess, potentially sort of. You get a
SOL?
you get a chub. I'll mail you a chub.
All
Oh
right.
boy.
Well, if
All right.
anyone has any questions, comments, concerns, or any ideas for the show, just contact me or Bellator, and we will see what we can do about anything that you guys want to talk about or any ideas for the show as well. Just go ahead and ping one of us or message us on Facebook, and we will be glad to answer you. So that is it for Get Good tonight. Thank you for listening. Do you have anything else you'd like to add?
No, just want to say have a good night. Bye, guys.
Yep. Thank you guys again. We will be back next week.